What is up, guys? It is Lynx. Welcome back to another Destiny video. Earlier today, a patch went live in Destiny, and most of the big changes that came with this patch had to do with the different subclasses, mainly the Hunters subclasses. So in today's video, I will be going over the different changes to each subclass and my opinion on them, so let's go ahead and dive on into it. So like I said before, most of the changes happened within the Hunters subclasses, so we're going to go ahead and start with those three. First, we're going to talk about the Gunslinger. Now I'm going to start off by saying that I am not too fond of the changes they made to this subclass, and since my main character is a gunslinging hunter, this really does hit home and it hurts. Before they get into the changes, they give a brief explanation on why they made the changes that they did. So the grenades are up first, and in their little explanation, they said that the trip mine is dominant because it can A, set a trap, and B, stick to enemies. And I agree with that. I mean, I love that I can stick this grenade to a wall and it acts as a little shield for me and warns me when enemies are coming my way, and it's nice when I do get lucky and stick them with a grenade. Now what I don't get is why they're taking the stickiness away. They act like people are running around in the Crucible and using trip mines like you would a fusion grenade. I say it takes skill and rewards those who are lucky enough to stick their opponent with a trip mine. Now if you want to talk about ridiculous sticky grenades, let's talk about the fusion grenades. Now before I get into this, understand that I'm not comparing the two. They are both very different, but what I do want to talk about is the sticky aspect of them. If you throw a trip mine at an enemy, chances are you're going to completely miss and not hit them at all. Vice versa, if you throw a fusion grenade at someone, hell, if you throw it 10 feet to the right of them, it will still somehow stick to them. All I'm saying is that even though taking the ability to stick someone with a trip mine away seems like a minor change, I don't really agree with it. Like I said, it rewards precision and accuracy, and that's what the Gunslinger class is all about. They also did a little tweaking to the swarm grenades as well. What they actually did to the grenades are as followed. The swarm grenade increased the arming radius by 0.5 meters. They also increased the detonation damage by 7% of the swarm grenades. And then trip mines no longer stick to the enemies. Instead, they arm on impact and then bounce right off of them, because that makes a whole lot of sense. And also, the trip mine damage was reduced by 3%, which is great as well. Next up is the Golden Gun. Now in their explanation on why they did what they did, they explained that the Golden Gun's damage in PvE was pretty terrible, and the Deadeye perk, which increases the Golden Gun's damage, wasn't being used as often in PvE as they think it should be. So the changes made to the Golden Gun are as followed. Base damage increased by 50% and adds an additional 30% to AI combatants, and Deadeye now increased the Golden Gun's damage by 30%. Even with these changes to the Golden Gun, I still don't see it as a real good option to use in PvE. I mean, you can tether more than 3 enemies with your Shadow Shot and create way more orbs in the process, so I do think the changes are good, but to still not make this class better than the Night Stalker PvE-wise. The final change that was made to the Gunslinger class had to do with the throwing knives. They nerfed them a little bit, and again, I do not agree at all with the changes. Their defense was that one headshot with a throwing knife, along with the damage over time that the Incinerary Blade upgrade deals, can kill someone who runs a low armor build with one headshot. Now I think to change that just because of this very random scenario is kind of ridiculous. First off, it is the player's choice to run a low armor build if they want to, so if they are constantly getting killed by one throwing knife headshot, then they should change the way they play. Second of all, hitting a throwing knife headshot is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So back to the whole trip mine thing again. A hunter is rewarded for his accuracy, and now even if you're accurate, you don't get fully rewarded. Not to mention the fact that this literally never happens. I feel like for something to get nerfed, it has to be a pretty big problem. For the past 6 months, whenever I play Destiny, I strictly play in the Crucible, and I have never once killed another player with one throwing knife headshot, and I have never been killed by just a single throwing knife headshot. And trust me, I play this game a lot, so it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. Now one thing that they did change that makes me happy happened to the Circle of Life perk. Now what this perk used to do is, if you got a throwing knife precision kill while your Golden Gun was activated, it would extend the duration of this Golden Gun. At the time, this was probably one of the most pointless perks for this subclass, because who in the hell throws a throwing knife while they have a Golden Gun active? Nobody does. But now what this perk does is it reduces the cooldown of your Golden Gun when you get a throwing knife precision kill. But the changes in the patch notes are as followed. Throwing knife base damage reduced by 10%, don't get that at all. Circle of Life, modified functionality. Precision kills with this throwing knife reduces the cooldown of the Golden Gun. Circle of Life no longer extends the duration of the Golden Gun, and the +1 armor that the Circle of Life gave you is now removed. And to round off the changes to the Gunslinger class, they just adjusted a couple of perks. The Scavenger perk increased the amount of grenade and melee energy by 30%. Chain of Woe now has +1 recovery, and Over the Horizon had that +1 recovery removed. Like I said, I'm not too fond of the changes made to this subclass. It doesn't really seem anything too major, honestly. It's just kind of annoying that they're making the grenade that I use and the melee weaker. Next up on the list is Blade Dancer. The changes that happened within this subclass put a smile on my face, mainly because I hate this subclass in the Crucible. If I were to main with this subclass, I would be very upset with the changes that happened because essentially they're nerfing this subclass, but without further ado, let's get into it. One of the first big things they hit on is mobility. Even the folks at Bungie think that Blink is ridiculous, so much so that Blink now has a recovery trade-off. Also within this category, they hit on the Blink Strike as well. Now you can't lunge as far with this melee anymore. So the changes they made include Blink Strike now incurs a -1 recovery penalty, and the Blink Strike lunge is reduced by 0.4 meters. The next thing that was changed was Blink Strike itself. There was a big problem in the Crucible where backstab would proc from the front, which is annoying as hell, so they fixed it so that backstab only happens from behind like it should. They also slowed down fast twitch so you don't get your Blink Strike as often. In the patch notes they said the valid backstab angle is reduced by 30%, Scape Artist invisibility effect delayed by 0.5 seconds, and fast twitch recharge was reduced by 20%. Next up is the super for the Blade Dancer, the Arc Blade. They hit this one hard and I love it. To me, there is nothing more annoying in the Crucible than when you hear someone pop their Blade Dancer. One, because it seems like they have it forever, and two, it is very hard to outrun them. One of the most annoying things though is how they can slice their way through the air at an amazing speed and lose almost none of their super when doing so. Well, that is one part that got hit pretty hard. The changes to the super are as followed. Base duration increased by 2%, which I don't get. I mean, this super lasts long enough as it is. The hit search range increased by 0.5 meters. They added 0.8 seconds cooldown between Arc Blade swings while airborne. Energy cost per swing increased by 20%, and energy cost on hit decreased by 20%. So these changes just make it so they can't move through the air quite as fast and not as long as they used to. Again, I really do like these changes, and that was more for PvP, but they also did some PvE things to the super as well. Like the Golden Gun, the Arc Blade didn't really shine in PvE, so they did boost a couple of things. Arc Blade damage now is increased by 30% against AI combatants. Vanish now causes the player to vanish on cast in addition to its normal functionality. Showstopper damage radius extended by 1 meter. Encore, killing an enemy with Arc Blade now extends its duration and grants a 150% increase to Arc Blade damage for a short time. Even with these buffs, like the Golden Gun, I don't think this will replace the usefulness that Shadow Shot brings. But other than that, I do like the changes to this subclass. Now it's time for the third and final Hunter subclass, Night Stalker. The first change happened with the grenade, the spike grenades to be exact. Spike grenade damage impulses per second reduced to 5 from 10. And then the spike grenade damage per impulse increased by 100% even though the total damage was completely unchanged. Now these changes don't really bother me a whole lot, not to mention the fact that it is a buff. I just don't really enjoy these grenades whatsoever. The next change affects the super. All they did was make the Shadow Shot suppress you on impact. The only reason they did this was because in the Crucible, you could get killed by a super if you shot someone with a bow because the effects took a little while to kick in. Now that it suppresses you, this shouldn't happen anymore. The next change affected the smoke. They explained that they wanted the smoke to be less frustrating, in air quotes, and the way they did that was by making it last longer and do more initial damage. Not a good start, because I feel like that would be even more frustrating than it is now, but the nice thing is that it won't suppress your jump, so it will be a little easier to get out, I suppose, but nonetheless very frustrating. The actual changes from the patch notes are impact damage increased by 34%, impact suppression and damage over time duration reduced by 1%, jump suppression removed from the initial impact status effects, based cloud smoke duration was increased by 1 second, envenomed cloud duration increased by 1 second, envenomed jump suppression removed from the cloud status effect, vanish and smoke plus 1 agility was removed, and then the snare cloud duration increased by 1 second. Now that is pretty much it for the Hunter. All the other changes to all the other subclasses mostly have to do with increasing super damage against AI combatants, but there are a couple things I want to talk about. The first one has to do with the Twilight Garrison. This chest piece gives the Titan class the ability to dodge in the air twice. Well, after this update, the Twilight Garrison moved the Tactical Air Support ability to a single dodge on a 3-second cooldown, so people using this chest piece can only dodge once at a time now. The final thing I want to hit on in this update has to do with Warlocks and their damn Firebolt grenades. In the patch notes, they said that they increased the arming time by 0.2 seconds and decreased the victim search radius by 1 meter. Pretty much what these changes do is give the player more time to get out of the way of Firebolt Grenade and decreases the area of reach for the actual fire bolts. The next thing is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Finally, Viking Funeral is getting nerfed. This perk will no longer extend the duration of the damage over time effects. I repeat, you will not burn as long anymore. What it does now is make you weaker to all other sources. The exact changes are that Viking Funeral no longer extends the duration of Ignite effects, but what it does is it now weakens targets afflicted with the Ignite effects, causing them to take 5% more damage from all other sources, and it stacks up to 3 times. Okay guys, so those are all the big changes that I wanted to talk about. For the most part, I like all the changes, all except for the Trip Mine and the Throwing Knife ones, but hey, what can you do? Let me know what you guys think about all the changes in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video or it helped you in any way, don't forget to smash that like button. Let's see if we can break 15 likes on this video. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on all my new videos. For anything and everything Destiny, this is Lynx. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my next Destiny video.